They never expected her to last a day. The instructors at the Naval Special Warfare Sniper School had seen hundreds of elite candidates wash out under the punishing regimen. So when the quiet woman with unremarkable features showed up at formation, the mockery began immediately. For 7 brutal weeks, they pushed her beyond reasonable limits, waiting for her to break. When they finally dismissed her on manufactured grounds, she accepted without protest. It was only as she walked away that someone noticed the markings on her rifle stock. Names, dates, operations that officially never happened. From which city in the world are you watching this video today? If stories of hidden legends resonate with you, consider subscribing for more untold histories of extraordinary individuals. Dawn broke over the Naval Special Warfare Center in Coronado, painting the sky in shades of amber and gold. 26 candidates stood at attention in perfect formation on the parade ground, their shadows stretching long across the asphalt. 25 men in peak physical condition, shoulders squared, jaws set with determination. And then there was Lorelei Frost, 5 inches shorter than the shortest man, her slight build nearly lost among the forest of broad shoulders. Commander Thaddeus Blackwood walked slowly down the line, clipboard in hand, reviewing the candidates' files with a practiced eye. Each folder contained extensive military backgrounds, psychological evaluations, and recommendation letters from superior officers. When he reached Lorelei's conspicuously thin folder, he paused, raising an eyebrow. "Candidates, welcome to SEAL Sniper School," Blackwood announced, his voice carrying across the grounds. "Over the next 8 weeks, we will determine which of you has what it takes to become the most lethal precision instrument in the United States military arsenal." His gaze lingered on Lorelei. "Some of you clearly do not belong here." The morning sun glinted off the corrugated metal buildings as the candidates introduced themselves one by one. Each man proudly stated his military background, unit affiliations, and combat deployments. When Lorelei's turn came, she simply stated, "Frost, qualified applicant." Whispers rippled through the formation. Sergeant Riker Davenport, the lead instructor, made the first cutting remark. "Paperwork mistakes happen. We will sort this out." After dismissing the other candidates to their first assessment, Blackwood called Lorelei to his office. The small space was lined with plaques, certificates, and photographs of Blackwood alongside various military dignitaries. He gestured for her to sit. "Miss Frost," he began, reviewing her file again, "this program has never admitted a woman. I suspect there has been an administrative error." The camera focused on her unwavering gray eyes as she replied, "No error, sir." Blackwood leaned back in his chair. "This is not some equal opportunity showcase. People die when snipers fail their missions." "I am aware of the stakes, sir." "Are you?" He studied her expressionless face. "I will allow you to stay for the first week's evaluation, but understand this is not a place for making political statements." "No political statement, sir. Just here to qualify." The initial physical evaluation began at noon under the punishing California sun. The candidates navigated an obstacle course designed to test endurance, strength, and mental fortitude. The men pushed through with grunts and shouts of encouragement to one another. Lorelei completed each challenge without exceptional speed but with perfect form and breathing control. She never gasped, never faltered, and most notably, never spoke. The first range test came later that afternoon. While other candidates rushed to set up their positions, Lorelei moved methodically, taking time to assess the wind, distance, and angle. Several instructors exchanged smirks at her deliberate pace. When she finally fired, the camera focused on the instructors' faces as they checked her target through their scopes. Perfect grouping, center mass. "Beginner's luck," muttered Davenport, marking her score with obvious reluctance. That evening in the barracks, the male candidates gathered in small groups, discussing the day's events and sizing up their competition. Conversation inevitably turned to Lorelei, who sat alone on her bunk, meticulously cleaning components of a custom case that remained mostly closed. "Has to be some kind of political stunt," said Axel Hargrove, a former Force Recon Marine with 3 combat tours under his belt. "No way they actually expect her to make it through." "Probably some senator's pet project," added another candidate. "Guarantee she is gone by the end of the week." "She is a distraction we do not need," concluded a third, glancing over at Lorelei, who gave no indication she heard them. Later that night, 2 instructors conversed outside the barracks. their voices carrying through an open window to where Lorelei lay perfectly still, eyes open in the darkness. "Her preliminary scores are perfect," said one. "Does not matter," replied Davenport. "She will break during Hell Week. They always do." By the end of week 1, Lorelei had completed every task assigned to her, not with the fastest times, but with a consistency that was beginning to draw attention. Commander Blackwood reviewed her results with growing consternation. "I expected her gone by now," he told Davenport privately. "What is the problem?" "No problem, sir. Week 2 is when we separate the real candidates from the tourists. She will not last." As promised, week 2 brought escalated challenges. The instructors increased the difficulty specifically for Lorelei: longer distances, shorter time windows, compromised firing positions. Weather conditions worsened, with unseasonable rain turning the training grounds into a muddy obstacle course. Through it all, Lorelei performed with the same methodical precision, never celebrating her successes, never complaining about the obvious targeting. During an urban terrain exercise, candidates were required to find and engage targets in a mock city environment, navigating through buildings while maintaining stealth. Axel Hargrove, frustrated by Lorelei's continued presence, deliberately bumped her position as she was lining up a shot. Without comment, she adjusted, recalculated, and still hit the target dead center. "You got lucky," he hissed as he moved past her. She said nothing, already focused on the next objective. Commander Blackwood watched the exercise from a monitoring station, reviewing each candidate's performance metrics. When Davenport brought him Lorelei's results, he frowned. "No mistakes yet, but technical proficiency is not everything. This program requires leadership, teamwork, adaptability in combat situations." "She will wash out soon enough, sir," Davenport assured him. "They all have a breaking point." As week 2 concluded, the first truly mysterious element emerged during a night operations exercise. Candidates were issued night vision equipment to engage targets in complete darkness. Instructor Jameson noticed that Lorelei did not use her issued gear but outperformed those who did. When questioned about it afterward, she simply said, "The equipment creates dependency." "How did you calculate windage without tools?" Jameson pressed. "Experience," was her only reply. The following morning, a visiting officer from Naval Intelligence walked through the mess hall during breakfast. The officer stopped abruptly upon seeing Lorelei, did a visible double-take, then immediately left the building. Several candidates noticed the strange interaction, including Hargrove, who narrowed his eyes suspiciously in Lorelei's direction. Later that day, Lorelei received a single phone call in the communications building. The duty officer could not help overhearing her side of the conversation, which sounded like coded language. "Parameter Alpha confirmed, sector clear, timeline unchanged." She ended with, "Target assessment continues, confirmation pending." By the beginning of week 3, the instructors had moved beyond professional challenge to psychological tactics. During a particularly grueling land navigation exercise, Davenport shadowed Lorelei. "You know you are taking a spot from someone who might actually deploy," he said. "Someone who could make a difference." Lorelei continued plotting her course on the map, her expression unchanged. "This is not summer camp, Frost. When these men graduate, they will be deployed to combat zones. Can you say the same?" She looked up then, meeting his eyes directly for the first time. Something in her gaze made him step back involuntarily. "I can say nothing, sir, as instructed." During a group exercise later that week, candidates were tasked with identifying and engaging multiple targets at varying distances. Lorelei spotted a target others missed, a small silhouette partially obscured by foliage at extreme range. Her shot hit perfectly, but instead of acknowledgement, Davenport accused her of somehow cheating. "There is no way you made that identification without prior knowledge," he insisted. "The scope elevation was correct for the distance," she replied evenly. "The wind patterns indicated movement behind the tree line." "Impossible," he snapped, though he could not explain how she would have cheated. The week concluded with a rain-soaked endurance test. Candidates were required to maintain a sniper position for 18 hours straight, exposed to the elements, without breaking form. As night fell and temperatures dropped, the men shifted uncomfortably, muscles cramping, teeth chattering. Lorelei remained perfectly still, eyes open, breathing measured, as though the physical discomfort simply did not register. In his office, Commander Blackwood received an unexpected call from a Pentagon official. Who authorized this evaluation? The voice demanded without preamble. Blackwood frowned in confusion. What evaluation? Frost. Who cleared her for assessment? Her paperwork came through standard channels, Blackwood replied. Is there a problem? There was a pause on the line. Proceed as normal. We will be in touch. The call ended, leaving Blackwood staring at the phone with growing unease. For the first time, he wondered exactly who Lorelei Frost really was, and why her presence had triggered interest from the highest levels of military command. Week 3 at the Naval Special Warfare Sniper School brought an intensity that separated even the most elite candidates from true specialists. As morning fog rolled in from the Pacific, Sergeant Davenport stood on the observation platform, binoculars trained on the rain-soaked field where candidates maintained their positions. His attention focused on Lorelei Frost, who had not moved for nearly 6 hours. Still not breaking form, he muttered to Instructor Jameson beside him. The others are struggling, Jameson observed, noting how male candidates periodically shifted positions to relieve cramping muscles. But she has not moved once, not even a tremor. Davenport lowered his binoculars, expression hardening. Increase her difficulty factor. I want elevation changes every 30 minutes. Different angles, different positions. Sir, we are already pushing her harder than the others. Not hard enough. The following day, Lorelei faced a series of challenges specifically designed to break her concentration. While other candidates were given standard distances and conditions, she was assigned constantly changing elevations, compromised positions, and shorter time windows. Through it all, her performance remained consistent, methodical, precise. During an afternoon briefing, Commander Blackwood reviewed the latest assessment metrics with his instructors. She is outperforming 70% of the class, Jameson reported reluctantly. Blackwood's jaw tightened. Technical proficiency is just one component. How is she handling the team exercises? Minimal participation, Davenport replied. Completes her assigned tasks but does not engage beyond that. Focus there, Blackwood instructed. This program produces team players, not lone wolves. The psychological pressure intensified. During a tactical planning session, Davenport singled out Lorelei. Frost, explain to the class why you think you deserve to be here when candidates with actual combat experience were rejected. The room fell silent. Lorelei looked up from her notes, her expression unchanged. I qualified through standard channels, sir. That is not what I asked. These men have served their country in combat zones. What have you done to earn your place here? My record speaks for itself, sir. What record? Davenport challenged. Your file is practically empty. A tense silence followed. Finally, Lorelei responded. Perhaps you should request the unredacted version, sir. Whispers spread through the room. Davenport's face flushed with anger. Dismissed candidates, except you, Frost. Report to Commander Blackwood's office immediately. In Blackwood's office, Lorelei stood at attention as both men questioned her background. Your comments border on insubordination, Blackwood said. This program requires absolute adherence to chain of command. Understood, sir. Then explain yourself. Nothing to explain, sir. I was instructed to qualify through the program without special consideration. Instructed by whom? Blackwood demanded. Lorelei remained silent. This is exactly the problem, Davenport interjected. You are not a team player, Frost. You are a distraction to candidates who might actually deploy these skills in defense of our nation. For the first time, something flickered across Lorelei's expression, gone so quickly neither man could identify it. May I return to training, sir? Blackwood waved her away. After she left, he turned to Davenport. That call from the Pentagon bothers me. Something is not adding up. She is playing some angle, Davenport agreed. But she will break. They all do. That evening, candidates participated in a complex night infiltration exercise. Teams navigated through a simulated hostile environment, identifying friend from foe under challenging visibility conditions. As Lorelei's team moved through the course, candidate Axel Hargrove deliberately bumped her as they approached a critical juncture. Watch your step, tourist, he muttered. Lorelei steadied herself without comment, but the momentary distraction caused her to miss the approach of an instructor playing an enemy combatant. For the first time in the program, she failed an objective. Back at the barracks, Hargrove recounted the incident to fellow candidates. "Finally cracked her perfect record," he boasted. "She is human after all." From her bunk, Lorelei observed the conversation while methodically field stripping and cleaning her weapon, a custom rifle that differed subtly from standard issue. The differences were small enough to pass casual inspection, but significant to anyone truly knowledgeable about precision firearms. Later that night, Lorelei received another phone call in the communications building. The duty officer noted her tense posture as she spoke in the same coded language as before. Timeline accelerated, perimeter compromise possible, maintaining position until primary confirmation. She ended with, "Target assessment continues, will advise on extraction." The call raised further questions among the staff. When the duty officer reported the conversation to Commander Blackwood, he immediately placed a call to his superior at Naval Special Warfare Command. "I need information on a candidate named Lorelei Frost," he requested. "Something does not add up with her placement here." "I will look into it," came the reply. "In the meantime, proceed with standard evaluation protocols." Week 4 brought the most physically demanding tests yet. During a 48-hour field exercise in the mountains east of San Diego, candidates were pushed to their absolute limits. Sleep deprivation, minimal rations, and constantly changing mission parameters tested not just shooting skills, but overall operational capability. While other candidates showed increasing signs of fatigue, Lorelei maintained the same methodical approach she had demonstrated since day one. What stood out most to the instructors was her ability to function without sleep. Where others nodded off during brief rest periods, her eyes remained alert, constantly scanning the environment. "It is not natural," Jameson commented to Davenport as they observed from a distance. "Almost like she is used to operating this way." "Or she is taking something," Davenport suggested. "We should test her." A mandatory drug screening yielded nothing, adding to the mystery surrounding her capabilities. The breaking point came during Week 5. As candidates executed a complex hostage rescue scenario, Lorelei spotted a detail others missed, a pattern in the hostage-takers' movements that revealed the location of the primary target. Without consulting team leader Hargrove, she adjusted her position and neutralized the target with a perfect shot. The exercise was successful, but Hargrove was furious. "You compromised the entire operation," he confronted her afterward. "We had a plan." "The plan was flawed," Lorelei replied simply. "The target would have relocated in 90 seconds. "You do not make that call," Hargrove shouted. "This is not a one-person show." Instructors used the incident to further isolate Lorelei from the other candidates. "This is why we do not break protocol," Davenport lectured the group. "Lone wolves get teams killed." By Week 6, the pressure had intensified to unprecedented levels. Commander Blackwood still had not received the information he requested about Lorelei, adding to his frustration. During a staff meeting, he made his decision. "I want her gone," he told his instructors. "Find a reason." Davenport nodded. "Already working on it, sir." The opportunity came during a high-stress extraction exercise. As candidates navigated through a simulated hot zone, Davenport deliberately altered Lorelei's compass readings. When she still managed to find the correct extraction point using alternative navigation methods, he accused her of cheating. "You had prior knowledge of the course," he claimed publicly in front of the other candidates. "There is no other explanation." For once, Lorelei defended herself. "I navigated by terrain features and sun position, sir." "Impossible in these conditions," Davenport insisted, though several instructors exchanged uncertain glances. The incident provided the pretext they needed. At the beginning of Week 7, Lorelei was summoned to Commander Blackwood's office. Davenport and 2 other instructors stood as witnesses. "Ms. Frost," Blackwood began formally, "we have documented multiple violations of program protocols." He slid a folder across the desk. Inside were fabricated evidence of rule violations, manipulated test results, and witness statements clearly coerced from other candidates. "This is not about your gender," Blackwood continued. "You are just not SEAL material. Your presence has become disruptive to the cohesion of the class." Lorelei reviewed the documents silently, her expression unchanged. "Do you have anything to say in your defense?" Blackwood asked. She closed the folder and placed it back on his desk. "Understood, sir." Her calm acceptance seemed to unsettle Blackwood more than any protest would have. You are dismissed from the program, effective immediately. You have 1 hour to clear your belongings and exit the facility. Yes, sir. Lorelei stood, saluted with perfect form, and left the office. As she walked across the parade ground toward the main gate, duffel bag over one shoulder and custom rifle case over the other, Sergeant Davenport watched from the barracks window. Something about her composure bothered him deeply. No protest, no complaint, no visible reaction at all to being unjustly removed from the program. Acting on impulse, he jogged after her. "Frost, wait." She stopped but did not turn around. "You cannot just take that weapon off base without proper clearance," he said, reaching for the rifle case. To his surprise, she allowed him to take it. His curiosity piqued. He opened the case, expecting to find the standard-issue rifle all candidates were assigned. Instead, he found a custom-built sniper rifle unlike anything in the program's inventory. The precision craftsmanship was immediately evident, but what caught his eye was an etching along the stock, a list of operation code names. "Damascus," he read aloud, his voice faltering. "Kingfisher? Obsidian Veil?" His eyes widened in shock. These were classified operations. "How did you—" He looked up at Lorelei, who had removed her cap for the first time since arriving. A thin scar ran along her temple, disappearing into her hairline. The recognition hit him like a physical blow. "You are Winterborn," he whispered, the name hanging in the air between them. A senior officer passing nearby froze upon hearing the name, then immediately snapped to attention and saluted. The name Winterborn triggered an immediate chain reaction across the Naval Special Warfare Center. Phones began ringing throughout the administrative buildings. Personnel rushed from offices toward the main gate, their faces registering shock, confusion, and in some cases, unmistakable awe. Sergeant Davenport stood frozen, the rifle case still open in his hands, his eyes fixed on Lorelei. 15 years in special operations had trained him to remain composed under pressure, but this revelation left him visibly shaken. "I do not understand," he managed finally. "Why would you subject yourself to this program if you are who I think you are?" Lorelei regarded him with the same calm detachment she had maintained throughout her time at the school. "Every system needs evaluation, Sergeant." Before he could respond, rapid footsteps approached from behind. Commander Blackwood ran toward them, an official document clutched in his hand, his face pale with realization. "Effective immediately," he called out, waving the paper. "Frost is to be given full access and cooperation under Article 7 of Special Directive 1192. But Lorelei was already walking through the gate. Along the perimeter of the base, every military person in sight, recognizing what was happening, stood at attention and saluted. She did not look back. As her figure receded from view, Blackwood turned to Davenport, his voice barely above a whisper. "Do you have any idea what we have done?" 2 weeks later, in a secure briefing room deep within the Pentagon, high-ranking military officials reviewed footage from Lorelei's training exercises. The atmosphere was tense, faces grim as they watched her flawless performance under conditions specifically designed to make her fail. Admiral Eleanor Winslet, Director of Naval Special Operations, paused the footage and addressed the room. "She was not there to become a sniper instructor. She was evaluating your program." Commander Blackwood, summoned to Washington to explain his actions, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Why did not anyone tell us?" Intelligence Officer Evanthe Mercer, a slim woman with sharp features and the intense focus of someone who had spent decades in the shadows, slid a classified folder across the table. "Operation Lighthouse," she explained. "After 15 years as our most effective operative, Winterborn is establishing training protocols for the next generation." She opened the folder, revealing documents stamped with the highest security classifications. Lorelei Frost, known operationally as Winterborn, has 211 confirmed high-value eliminations across 37 countries. Many targets were thought to have died from natural causes or accidents. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. These were not standard military operations. They were the kind of missions governments never acknowledged, the kind that reshaped geopolitics without leaving fingerprints. "Where is she now?" Blackwood finally asked. Mercer closed the folder. "Classified, but she left an assessment." She slid another paper toward him. Blackwood read the single line aloud. "Program requires complete overhaul. Current methods would produce 78% casualty rate in actual combat scenarios. Admiral Winslet leaned forward. Gentlemen, we sent the most skilled operator in American history to evaluate our premier sniper training program, and you expelled her for being too competent. We had no idea who she was, Blackwood protested weakly. That was the point, Mercer replied. If you had known, you would have treated her differently. She needed to experience the program as any candidate would. What happens now? Davenport asked. Admiral Winslet's expression was severe. Now you fix it. Implement her recommendations, every single one. Back at the Naval Special Warfare Center, the training program underwent a radical transformation. Sergeant Davenport, now subdued and humbled by his encounter with Winterbourne, implemented new protocols based on her methods. The carefully documented observations she had made throughout her time at the school formed the backbone of a completely revised curriculum. The remaining candidates, who had once mocked Lorelei, now studied her techniques with reverence. The story of Winterbourne's brief presence at the school had spread throughout the special operations community, growing with each retelling until it reached near mythic proportions. In the equipment room, Davenport discovered a sealed envelope addressed to him, containing detailed notes on each candidate's strengths and weaknesses, along with specific recommendations for their development. The insights were so precise, so perfectly tailored to each individual, that it was clear Lorelei had been evaluating them even as they believed they were evaluating her. One afternoon, as Davenport supervised sniper training on the range, he noticed a distinctive shooting style from one of the candidates, a technique he had only seen once before. "Where did you learn that method?" he asked. "Found it in the new training manual, sir," the candidate replied. "The Winterbourne Protocol." Davenport nodded, understanding now that her influence would extend far beyond her brief physical presence. In correcting their approach, she had potentially saved countless future lives. That evening, he sat alone in his office reviewing classified files that had finally been made available to him, files that detailed small fragments of Lorelei Frost's extraordinary career. Most operations remained heavily redacted, but what he could see painted a picture of unparalleled skill and dedication. There were letters of commendation that had never been publicly awarded, medals presented in private ceremonies, and reports of critical situations where a single precise shot had prevented international incidents or saved hundreds of innocent lives. Behind the public narratives of diplomatic breakthroughs and narrowly averted conflicts, Winterbourne had operated in the shadows, changing history without recognition. In one particularly notable case, a terrorist cell planning to detonate a dirty bomb in a European capital had been neutralized by what officials reported as internal conflict. The reality, according to the file, was a single operation conducted by Winterbourne that eliminated all 7 cell members in less than 4 minutes, from a position considered impossible by standard sniper metrics. As weeks passed, the effects of Lorelei's evaluation rippled throughout the special operations community. Equipment specifications were revised based on her subtle modifications. Training scenarios were redesigned to incorporate her methodologies. Even the psychological assessment of candidates was overhauled to better identify the specific mental attributes that had made Winterbourne so effective. Commander Blackwood, upon his return from Washington, addressed the instructors with uncharacteristic humility. "We have been given a rare opportunity to learn from the best. Our job now is to ensure her wisdom is not wasted." For Davenport, the experience had forced a profound reevaluation of his assumptions. The image of Lorelei's calm acceptance of their unjust dismissal haunted him, especially now that he understood who she truly was. An operator with her record could have ended any of their careers with a single phone call, yet she had submitted to their authority, allowed their mistreatment, all to ensure the integrity of her evaluation. 3 months after Lorelei's departure, the first class to complete the revised program graduated. Their performance metrics had improved by nearly 60% across all categories. More importantly, when deployed to actual combat operations, their survival rates and mission success percentages showed dramatic improvements. On the final day of training, Davenport took the graduating class to the same firing range where Lorelei had first demonstrated her extraordinary precision. As the sun set over the ocean, casting long shadows across the grounds, he shared with them the story of Winterbourne's visit, though much of it remained classified. "The greatest among us often walk unrecognized," he told them. Their victories celebrated by those who never know their names. Remember that as you go forward. True excellence rarely announces itself. After the ceremony, Davenport walked alone across the empty range. Something caught his eye near one of the target stations, a small reflection in the fading light. He bent down to find a single shell casing standing perfectly on end, an impossible balance that could only have been deliberately placed. A signature. As he turned the casing over in his hand, he noticed a tiny etching on its base, a simple lighthouse symbol. He smiled, understanding the message. Her work here was done, but the light she had brought would guide others forward. Miles away, in a small diner off the interstate, Lorelei Frost sat alone at a corner table, dressed in civilian clothes that rendered her effectively invisible among the other patrons. Her coffee had grown cold as she reviewed documents on a tablet, blueprints for another training facility awaiting her evaluation. A man entered the diner, a veteran with visible scars and the measured movements of someone who had seen combat. He took a seat at the counter, ordering coffee with the quiet efficiency of one accustomed to observing before engaging. Their eyes met briefly in the reflection of the diner window. He nodded almost imperceptibly, one professional acknowledging another. She returned the gesture. Neither spoke. None of the other customers noticed the exchange or had any reason to suspect that they were in the presence of someone extraordinary. Lorelei left a generous tip, tucked the tablet into her bag, and walked out into the busy street. Within moments, she had disappeared into the flow of pedestrians, just another face in the crowd, her lethal skills and remarkable history invisible beneath her unremarkable exterior. Above the city, storm clouds gathered on the horizon, promising rain by nightfall. Somewhere in those clouds, lightning flashed, brief and brilliant, illuminating the landscape for a heartbeat before returning to darkness. Like Winterbourne herself, momentarily visible only to those who knew where to look, then gone again, continuing her silent work in the shadows.